Imagine an empire that was the very cradle of conquerors and philosophers, a real powerhouse that, for centuries, was the center of the known world in ancient India. Well, that's the story of Magadha. But, for every story of a glorious rise, there's usually a darker tale of decay, and that's exactly what we're digging into today. So, how does a superpower, an empire forged by legendary kings, just start to rot from the inside out? Well, the answer lies in a story of massive ambition, a really chilling prophecy, and a poison that seeps right into the heart of the kingdom: corruption. Let's start at the beginning. First off, let's just get a sense of the sheer scale we're talking about here. Magadha wasn't just another kingdom. For hundreds of years, it was the absolute center of gravity in ancient India. Its roots go way, way back into both myth and, actual recorded history. This timeline really shows you the depth of Magadha's power. I mean, we start way back in the epic era with the legendary Jarasandha. Then, as we get into recorded history, you see the foundations being laid by the Nanda Dynasty. But the real explosion of power, it begins right here, with Bimbisara kicking off an age of imperial expansion, a mission his son, the formidable Ajatashatru, just kept going with ruthless efficiency. They were building a true juggernaut. But here's the crazy part. As Magadha's kings were busy building this empire of land and power, something totally different was taking root in the very same soil: a revolution of the mind. This land of warriors also became the heartland for incredible thinkers like Mahavira and the Buddha. They were spreading these radical ideas of nonviolence and enlightenment right in the middle of all this epic political turmoil. So Magadha becomes this amazing land of contrasts, right? You've got war and peace, empire building, and soul-searching all happening at once. And this whole duality is perfectly captured in the story of its legendary capital, a city whose fate was foretold before a single stone was even laid. Like so many great cities, this one started with a purely military purpose. King Ajatashatru, ever the strategist, he needed a better spot to fight his rivals. He picked this little village, Pataliputra, right at a strategic point where rivers met, and he ordered a fort to be built. A very practical decision, sure, but one that happened to catch the eye of a very, very important observer. As the legend goes, the Buddha himself passed by while this fort was being built, and when someone asked him about its future, he delivered this chillingly accurate prophecy. He saw its glory, a truly magnificent city, but he also saw its doom. He predicted it would be threatened by fire and flood, and then, most ominously, by internal strife. That last part, that's a warning that's going to echo for centuries. And just like that, the prophecy began to unfold exactly as foretold. Ajatasatru's son, Udayin, saw the strategic genius of the site, and he moved the capital from Rajagriha to this new city, now named Pataliputra. So, the first part of the prophecy, fulfilled. A magnificent city was born, becoming the very heart of the empire. Okay, so fast forward a few centuries. Dynasties rise, they fall. The empire of Magadha, now ruled from the great city of Pataliputra, is inherited by a new line of kings, the Nandas, and it's under their rule that the prophecy's warning of internal strife is about to erupt into a full-blown crisis. Now, the final king of this line was a man named Dhana Nanda, and this is the key thing you need to remember. He didn't build this empire. He didn't forge it through battle or clever diplomacy. He inherited it. A vast, prosperous kingdom was simply handed to him, which kind of raises a critical question. What happens when someone wields a power they never actually had to earn? This slide just lays it out perfectly. It captures the rot right at the core of the Nanda administration. You've basically got a kingdom with two heads, and they're pulling in completely opposite directions. On one side, you have the Mahamantri, the prime minister, and he's worried about the state's finances, justice for the people, and the moral decay he sees all around him. On the other side, King Dhana Nanda. His concerns are festivals, his own personal pleasure, and just making sure he keeps his absolute power. It is a recipe for absolute disaster. The unraveling of this entire kingdom didn't start with a big rebellion or some foreign invasion. No, it started with something much, much smaller. It all started with a single missing coin. Just one pan, a single coin, was found missing from the monthly stipend that was paid to the royal family. A tiny error, right? Something most people would just ignore. But the Mahamantri, the chief minister, already sensing the rot in the kingdom, saw it for what it was: a loose thread, and so he decided to pull. When the court kind of questioned why he was making such a big deal about a single coin, the Mahamantri gave this brilliant analogy. He explained that trying to spot corruption among officials is like trying to see when a fish swimming in water actually takes a drink. It happens silently, it happens constantly, right under your nose. That one missing coin wasn't just a mistake, it was a symptom of a much deeper sickness. So he pulls on that one thread, and it unravels a conspiracy that was just far worse than anyone could have possibly imagined. This wasn't just about some petty theft. This went all the way to the top, and it threatened the very foundation of Magadha itself. The investigation revealed a staggering truth. This wasn't about one coin. It was about lakhs of gold coins, a massive fortune looted directly from the state treasury. And the thief? It was King Dhana Nanda himself. To cover his tracks, he had murdered his own charioteer and the other servants who helped him. This was a betrayal not just of his office, but of his own people. This all leads to an unbelievable confrontation right there in the royal court. The Mahamantri, armed with the truth, stands before the absolute monarch and accuses him directly. He calls the king a traitor who has stolen the people's wealth, the very money that is the lifeblood of the entire empire. Dhana Nanda, furious and totally cornered, starts screaming for proof. And the Mahamantri, with just incredible courage, delivers this powerful and poetic challenge. He declares that he knows exactly where the murdered witnesses are buried, and that the very earth itself will serve as the final proof of the king's crimes. And this is where the story just hangs in the balance. The Buddha's prophecy of Pataliputra, of a great city destroyed by internal strife, has come true in the most terrifying way imaginable. The king himself is a thief and a murderer. The state is rotten right to its core. Which leaves us with one final, urgent question. When the protector becomes the predator, who will rise to protect the people?